Intro chat with Merrill's live, digging deep where techs thrive. From the latest hacks to cool updates, join the ride, don't be late.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Intro Chat. And I have two guests today. We are going to talk all about Zero Trust, Zero Trust workshop. We have Ramiro, who worked on it from the Entra ID side of things, and Clay, who did all of the Intune side of things. They're both architects in the customer experience team. Clay, do you want to just tell us about yourself and what you do?
Sure, thanks, Merrill. I'm very glad to be on Intra Chat. I don't get invited to Intra events very often. Usually it's only Intune. So it's great to be here. I've been working with yourself and Ramiro now for many years. For the last couple of years, we've really been focused on the Zero Trust workshop. And, it's been a really exciting time for me in my career. Honestly, I feel like we as Microsoft and specifically our CXE organization is having more impact with, actually getting our customers deployed than, with these workshops than anything that I can remember in, my 10 plus years at Microsoft. And it's very exciting times and definitely looking forward to talking to you about that today.
Awesome. And Ramiro.
Cool. Well, hi everybody. So it's a pleasure to be here also. I don't think I've done a lot of podcasts, so um, glad to be here. Um, Also part of the CXC organization for what, almost 10 years now, same as Clay. And yeah, I agree. It's been a very exciting time for us to be here. I come from a little bit of a background of engineering. So when I first joined Microsoft almost 20 years ago, I was part of the team that built ADFS, and then I had the privilege to see pretty much from the beginning of creating the product all the way to getting it to mainstream, and then the cloud happened, and now we are actively telling customers to move away from it, which is a very interesting kind of completion of a circle there. And yeah, as Clay is saying, we're in a very interesting inflection point in the industry, and now we're pretty excited to be part of it and help customers to get there. So that's very cool.
Awesome. Super honored to have the both of you. At Microsoft, when things go wrong at, very high profile customers and you need someone who knows the product end to end, these are the type of people that get called. Clay and Ramiro have gone in, they have put down fires, they have brought in people from end to end. So there's a lot of knowledge and wealth and experience that comes from them. Compared to me, who's just starting up in identity here.
For the record, Merrill, I call Ramiro when I, need help with those big customers. Like Ramiro is definitely the person that I call. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
we call each other
awesome.
that way, and yeah, so it's actually a privilege to be in that position of helping the largest customers, and we learn a lot from them. So uh, part of what we're doing in the workshop is a great example of us basically retrofitting back to their teams our learnings on how customers approach the projects, the technology, and what does it matter to them. That's a huge part of what we do. So it goes both ways, I would say.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us the sort of like the why behind the Zero Trust workshop, right? Like what was the reason you built the workshop? And like it's labeled as a comprehensive technical guide, that Microsoft's learnings from thousands of customer deployments. What was the thing that you were seeing repeatedly that led to saying, yeah, we need to create this sort of guided framework?
Let me take a first stab at it, and then I'd love to see what the Clay side of the story is. But essentially, as we were working with customers, different customers have different approaches to ultimately get to the same goal, right? So we have a lot of products that are together very powerful. So we have a very good story together, but we have found very clearly after doing this for a while that customers need some help on connecting the dots. So I can help customers even within the product itself with Entra. We have a good example is rolling out multi-factor authentication, which was the project. Now we are in phishing resistant, which is like the next step. But even in projects within the same workload, there are ways to do it efficiently and other inefficiently, right? So you can roll out and spend all the time having like MFA with, let's say, TOTP, with Authenticator app, and then push notification. If you do it later, then it's just touching comps again and things like that. So there's a lot of room to do it inefficiently and a lot of room to do it efficiently. But then the idea is like, we know how to do it, Clay know how to do it, and pretty much us in the team. But then the idea of the workshop is, how do we make this in a way that is available for everybody? They can do it on their own. So customers themselves or our partners, the field at Microsoft. So that's kind of how the idea came to be. As we did many of these projects, is like, hey, there's elements that we can templatize, I would say.
Yeah, from my perspective, very similar to Ramiro's, but I think the big push for me was for about 5 years, or starting about 5 years ago, I was doing a lot of zero trust, like high level enterprise briefings with customers. And, what I found is that, I was telling this story that was, hey, here's the 6 principles of zero trust that we, how we approach zero trust at Microsoft, our 6 pillars. Here's the 3 principles of zero trust, and go do zero trust. And what I found was that when I talked to customers a year later, and I was like, okay, well, you were very excited about zero trust, when we talked about it, how's your deployment going? And they're like, honestly, we got overwhelmed, or I just didn't know where to start. And I really realized, I was actually meeting with Ramiro, and we were looking at a workshop that he was building for, some of his infra stuff. And we just started talking. We're like, why don't we do this for zero trust? And, why don't we really give prescriptive guidance to customers on how to deploy? Because that's what we're missing. And I started doing a lot of research on, am I talking about zero trust wrong? But I started looking, and everyone in the industry was telling the same story. They were telling that very simple, hey, here's the 6 pillars of zero trust, go do it. Or, these are the things you need to think about. But no one was really going deep into the details of how to actually deploy it. And I think customers are really struggling with it. And that's really what I think pushed me and really gave me the initiative to start really focusing on this, is I really realized how much customers were struggling with the deployment piece of zero trust.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, and then Clay has a very cool set of slides that walk the customers in those briefings, and then it's like a journey of, like, I don't know, 20 plus steps, but a chunk of them are not push this button in this portal kind of thing. Some of them are, you should think how you procure your hardware, for example. Like, things like that make a ton of sense in retrospective, and as you see, obviously, but then customers, when they see the whole picture together, is like when you see, oh, good point, I missed this thing, or oh, good point, I need to plan this ahead of this other thing. So that, I think, is where the workshop kind of help put all together for customers.
Nice, nice. So tell us about the workshop. Like, how is it supposed to be run? Who does it? How does someone who wants to use the workshop, how do they go about it?
You want to take this, Ramiro?
Clay?
You want me to take a stab at it? All right.
Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah. So, how you get access to the workshop is really the first step, and that's going to aka.ms/ZT workshop. And that's a site that Merrill and others have built. It's basically a way for you to easily go and download the workshop on your own. You can run an assessment. There's 2 parts to the workshop, which we'll probably dive into in a few minutes, but there's an assessment piece to the workshop, and then there is what we call the roadmap portion of the workshop. And to me, the assessment is the automated portion of the workshop, whereas the roadmap is the manual portion of the workshop. That's how I like to think about it. And right now, when we first started out, we started out with basically identity, devices, and data. And we did want to make sure that we were, not dividing stuff up by product names. We're really,
Right.
focused on the pillar approach to zero trust. So we started out with devices, identity, and data. That has since expanded in the last couple of days to also include network infrastructure, and the new SecOps pillar, which we have basically included stuff like our Defender for Identity, Defender for Office, Defender for Apps, Defender for Cloud, Defender for all the defenders, and then as well as Sentinel is included in that new SecOps pillar. And we really have tried to make it to where you can have a single workshop. Basically, we like to just have one workshop, at a time, so that you're just focused on one area. You only need the stakeholders for one of those pillars in the room. But we like to basically get the stakeholders either on a call or in the room, and we start walking through, the boxes. And when I say the boxes, basically each feature area or each knob in some cases, or each scenario or thing that you need to think about is has its own box in the Zero Trust workshop. And when we deliver these workshops with customers, we basically walk through each of those boxes and we say, where are you on this particular item? Are you just starting? Are you in planning? Is it already planned? Have you completed this? Is it in progress? Are you using a third-party product, a non-Microsoft product for this? Are you using a first-party product that's probably not the cloud-based solution that we have? And we basically just mark those items, and then we take notes and we just say, hey, this is where you are. Do you have anything that you want to pass on to us at Microsoft about these features? Are there things that are great for you? Are there things that are working well? Are there things that are not working well for you? And we basically just have that conversation, and it really allows the customer to get more information about why they should do that thing when it comes to Zero Trust, and how to do that thing when it comes to Zero Trust. And that's really like how I like to approach the workshops.
Yeah, I think Clay, you touch on all the points. The one thing I want to emphasize is that as we go to the workshop, I think I see it more like a tool for the ultimate end to level set various stakeholders within the organization about the strategy. So like half the time, like I don't know if that's your experience, Clay, but in my experience, it's almost like 60-40, right? So 60% they already know, 40% is something that somebody who is in the workshop didn't know about the product, either because they are in a separate team. Like for example, we have in identity, we have the IAM team, for example, identity and access management team. And then some of the Zero Trust kind of overlaps with the SecOps team, just as an example. So there are things that they don't necessarily know, and it just you see a lot of light bulb moments of like, oh, good point. Why, like, can we do this differently? Or we also kind of take a little bit of sidebar and explain, oh, this is a thing that when you roll out the product, I don't know, 5 years ago was not there, or it was not as mature, and here's what has happened since. So it's a very fluid. So it's like I see it more as like a tool to the ultimate like the exchange of information and alignment. I am very surprised and in a positive way every time we do it. Like how we customers see the value of it is sometimes in education, or in some cases we have seen that they literally take the output of the workshop and then they present to the leadership of like, for hey, look how far have we come, but then all the areas that we also can use and we haven't yet to get funding for the projects, for example. So it's a great tool. I'm talking mostly about the the manual part or the roadmap, but it's very cool to see. And in some cases, we've done this. Remember that one workshop we had in person when we had the very first iteration? I said like almost 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So customers who done it a year ago, for example, would come back, and then it's very cool to see how far they have come and how they can just keep working on the roadmap we gave them. So pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's the good thing about the roadmap of the workshop, right? It gives them a way to take a snapshot of a point in time, and then they do the things, and about a year later, they go through that exercise again, and you can see how much they progressed. But then the workshop doesn't stay the same, right? How do you compare it to the first few versions you had versus what we have in 2025? How do you say they're different?
Yeah, so the workshop has definitely come a long way since we first started. The first thing I'll say is that, you know, as was mentioned last week, we added a lot more pillars and a lot more product coverage to the workshop. And like I would say we over doubled the amount of content available in the workshop over the past 2 weeks. And one of the other things that was added at that time was two different basically icons that we've added to each of the boxes. And the first icon is for implementation effort. So this is how much how much effort it's actually going to take for that admin to go deploy this thing. Is it going to be a high, medium, or low amount of effort that's required to get this particular feature fully deployed? And the second icon that we added to each of the boxes is user impact. So how much impact is this change going to have on your end users? And, is it going to actually impact their work? Is it going to be something that is, high impact that could actually, prevent them from working for a couple of hours?
What are some
And,
examples like on the Intune side that
yeah.
where it's
So,
very helpful?
sure. So, for every single box, that we basically have called out what the implementation effort is. So let's say for compliance policy, from an admin perspective on implementation effort, it's actually low. It's basically going in and saying, hey, what is the minimum operating system I want to allow? Do
Right.
I want to require a passcode or a PIN on that device? Do I want to require antivirus, and do I want it to be at a certain level, et cetera? From the compliance standpoint, from the admin standpoint, it's really a simple, task to go and create that policy and then target it to all users or all devices. The impact or the user impact, however, for compliance policy is more of a medium impact where it is actually going to require them to meet certain criteria in order to get access to corporate resources. And I think that's just one example of where we've tagged as low implementation effort, but medium user impact. And that's kind of just an example for you of what that looks like.
And even in Intune itself, you evolved it, right? Like when you run it with customers, like what's the feedback loop and how have you improved it? I know you've run
Sure.
it. Like, do you have a count of how many times you run workshops and
It's
refine
over
the
50.
workshop?
It's
Yeah.
over 50 now.
Yeah.
And we are tracking those workshops very closely now. And we actually have reports that we're feeding out as part of that internally to our uh, Intune LT from these efforts. But what I'll say is that when we started out, um, for one, we had divided up like iOS and Android for MAM and MDM. There was a separate MDM for iOS. There was a separate MDM for Android, a separate MDM for, or MAM for iOS and MAM for Android. And it was just taking way too long. And so with the new version that came out a couple of weeks ago, we actually condensed those sections. So now we have MAM for iOS and Android. If there is an item that is specific to iOS or Android, we've actually tagged that with an icon in the box itself. And then we also have, MAM for iOS and Android and MDM for iOS and Android. And both of those are now tagged to where you can actually, know if something is particular for iOS or Android. But at the same time, we've gotten rid of a lot of the duplication and the duplication of effort that was going on when having to go through all those things multiple times for each operating system. And so that's one of the ways that we've improved the Intune workshop. The other thing I'll say is that I've really realized in running this workshop with so many customers that the one thing that is most surprising to me is just um, how difficult it is to keep up with policies and policy hygiene, as we call it. It has been, trying to think of a nice way to put this. It's been eye-opening to see just, the amount of settings that our customers are having to keep up with and the amount of policy settings that our customers are having to go through and make sure, every 3 to 6 months that they're having to go in and update. And so that's really opened my eyes to the fact that, I really need to call that out in these workshops, and we really need to think about, hey, what is my cadence going to be for going in and reviewing this, for my Intune policies? How often do I need to go check this thing? And really get them as part of the workshop to set up a cadence to
Yeah, very important.
think about policy hygiene.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's been one of my biggest learnings and the biggest changes in the way that I've been delivering the Intune workshop is really focusing on, hey, I know that you've done this policy. I know that you have this policy. You've thought about this with a zero trust lens. Are you actually keeping up with it and making sure it's up to date? And that's been something that I've started asking with almost every policy, just because I've realized that most customers are not. And it could be because the person who set that policy 5 years ago said it and no longer works with the company, or
Right.
they said it and forgot about it, or the person who did it changed roles, and so the person who took over didn't even know that they needed to go update that policy. There's a lot of different reasons that I've heard from customers that they haven't updated those policies, but that's something that we're definitely finding, and we're also finding areas where there's something new. I mean, the setting to basically block access to applications using MAM with a conditional launch setting called disabled account, where it's basically literally almost no impact to your end users unless that user account is disabled.
Right.
It's just no one knows that they need to go set that setting because it's
Right.
fairly new. We didn't do a great job of advertising it, and it's just something that we can talk about in these workshops and just say, hey, let's go check this setting in your tenant.
And that's one of the beauties of the workshop, right? You condensed all this knowledge of what you and the rest of the customer experience team have, and you only work with a few customers, right? Like in the hundreds, versus now that knowledge is extracted, the essence, into
Yeah.
these workshops, and it scales out to partners and everyone else
And
throughout
that is
these.
exactly the goal with this is that basically codify all the learnings that we have collectively as a team to share with the customers and then also with partners, right? Because one of the things we cannot do is follow through on the execution of those things where like we tell them, hey, these are all the things that you have opportunity to go and do to improve your security. And then we like here's your spreadsheet, see you
Yes.
like in 6 months or a year or whatever. But then from that point forward, we have seen a lot of energy from our partner ecosystem where they use this workshop as a way to basically outline a roadmap for a customer, but then also help them to go and execute based on priority or based on a specialty or areas where there's budget, etc., which is a great thing that we're seeing that unfortunately we cannot do directly, right? So that's been a great
Yeah.
thing. And also, when we talk to partners and our colleagues, this is one of the things that we keep emphasizing is the value. So the workshop is a tool, but the value is actually the expertise that the person delivering brings to the table.
Right.
Because this is basically a structure to make sure that we cover all the areas. But yeah, that like depth of expertise is what
And you
where
don't
the
have to be a
person
Microsoft
delivering. Yeah,
employee.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
you don't have to be a
Right.
Microsoft employee. This is, you can be a partner. You can be, the SME for your customer, or for your company.
Right.
But, I will say that one of the biggest areas that I've seen this really be, taken up and now used more so than even we're using it internally is with our partner community, and we have so many partners that are now utilizing this workshop. I actually had two workshop train the trainer sessions with partners this week. I was asked to do one next week, and where basically we're just kind of showing the partner how to do it, how we run through the workshop with customers, which we're happy to do, by the way,
Right.
if you're a partner listening here. But we basically would show you, hey, here's how we recommend that you walk through this with your own customers. And then
Uh-huh.
we just let the partner run with it on their own. And I've already heard that there's multiple partners where, they've run this workshop and, they not only are able to help map out their customers' kind of zero trust roadmap, but they also, a lot of times get hired to come in and fix the things
Exactly
that were
right.
discovered during the workshop that need to be fixed. And so I thought that's something that's really cool
Yeah,
that I've seen personally come out of this as well.
and actually one point to call out is that in the workshop website, we actually have a section in our documentation say how can partners or somebody else can just take it and personalize with their own branding, with their own flavor to it. That's one of the beauty of the current format, which is Excel. Like it's
Yeah.
a very flexible format that allows those customizations in a very intuitive way that works for customers to keep, but also for people to build on top of and so on. So
And on
that's
that
been pretty good.
note, many people ask me like, why is it in Excel? And my response is because Merrill is literally an Excel wizard. And we started out with another type of app, and we basically realized that it was very hard to customize if the person giving it wanted to change something, or even we needed to change something on the fly. There's really no way to do that using
Yeah.
the app model that we were using before. And Merrill said, "Oh, you know what? We're going to do it in Excel." And I will admit that at the time, my eyebrow kind of rose, and I was like, "In Excel?
And I say,
Okay."
yeah,
Since then,
proving that,
um,
yeah.
yeah, since then I've actually had a MVP tell me that this is the seventh wonder of the Excel world, and it has just
That's
been
hilarious.
amazing to see the response to the customers and the partners being able to actually not only take what we've been building, what Merrill has built here, and actually customize it themselves. If there's a box that they don't want to talk about with that particular customer, might be a sore subject, or if there's something they want to add, it's as easy as copying and pasting. And it's so
Yeah,
simple to do, and you can make this your own thing. And you can
right.
also take notes in it.
Yeah,
So yeah, go
one
ahead.
thing, yeah, as we were creating the workshop, so what you see today that we launched what in early July, like July 9th, right? And then the previous launch in November, we had many iterations before when we were very like in nascent efforts. But yeah, as part of the delivery, one of the things as we were learning, right, the Clay talking to customers, me talking to customers, and so on. Oh, good point. Yeah, we haven't talked about this other thing, and I just literally clone the box and add it, and then we refine it for the next iteration and so on. And there's a lot of things. One thing that we have been, I think it's in our DNA as a team, I would say, is that we are very receptive to feedback, right? So everything that you see in Excel spreadsheet has been like a lot of loops, like feedback loops coming, like when you see in the status of a box, like what are the possible states, all the states being thought through. Like we had a very simple, non-started, done, in progress, three states, and then after we start talking to customers, and then we get to get all the nuances and all that. Then all the states became richer and richer. And that's just one example. But everything that you see in that box is basically like years and years of us
Yeah.
refining and talking to many customers. And I would say, yeah, I think like between all of us collectively probably are over 150, I would say, over the years.
Yeah.
So what folks see now is the result of like hundreds of iterations and over many
Yes.
years. And
The states thing is interesting, right,
Mhm.
Ramiro? Like it started as like each box in the roadmap was, in progress, done.
Exactly
Like
right.
it started with
Simplistic.
three,
Uh-huh.
with very simple, and then it evolved quite a lot. And I know one of the options you had is like third party, because that's for
Mhm.
me feels like it's not just a Microsoft thing. You're not just selling a Microsoft service. You're just telling these are all the things you need to be aware of
Yeah.
when you're doing zero
And
trust,
uh-huh.
and you can pick third party products, whether it's maybe SailPoint for governance or Jam for maybe the macOS side of things. You can, in this workshop, flag that as an option
Right.
and write notes as well.
I like from our perspective as a team, our main goal is for customers to understand what they need to do to achieve zero trust. And we try to be as objective as possible and meet customers where they are, right? So not all customers are going to be 100% Microsoft Shop, and not all customers are going to have uh, all the components that we outlined in the workshop. But then our goal there is to like be this advisor for customers. Say, hey, you need to take care of your I don't know, like rolling out the software updates for your devices. So if you have this third party, now one thing what we call out is like here are the things that you have to think about that you need to do with your third party as an integration yourself versus if you were doing it with Entra or with Intune or with Microsoft Security in general, then this like closed loop system, the systems talk to each other and the signal, they understand each other and so on. And we have seen that customers are reacted to that, and then they are very grateful on us pointing things out like that. So
Clay,
yeah.
there's this one option in the drop down that says first party other, and I know you wanted me to edit. Like, what's the backstory behind that option? First
Okay,
party
so
other.
first party other. So when we're looking at zero trust, particularly on the devices side, if you've been following Microsoft for a while now in Intune, we're really pushing customers to move to what we call cloud native endpoint management. And this is intra only join, Intune only managed. However, we still have a lot of customers that are using ConfigMan or SCCM, for example, to still manage certain workloads. And that could be in co-management, that could be in other things. And so the reason that I put first party other is that we would love the customers to be using Intune, which we consider our first party um, uh, main solution for MDM and device management. However, if the customer is using SCCM, it gives me the option to just say, hey, they're using a different third-party product than our recommended third-party product for that particular workload, or our most recommended product for that workload. So it just gives me that option to mark that they're using SCCM. But at the same time, I was like, hey, what do we need to do to move you to intra only join, Intune only managed? And that's one of the areas that I'll say that this workshop to me has been most impactful is that path to cloud native. We have a row in the workshop that's just focused on that. Like, have you migrated your group policy to Windows CSPs? Have you migrated your file shares to the cloud? Or have you moved from WSUS to, auto patch for your Windows patching?
Right.
And that's just one of those areas where we really want customers to move that direction, but we understand that some people are going to be using ConfigMan or SCCM for those workloads. And so we just wanted to give you an option to mark that. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's an interesting option, right? There's third party and then there's a first party other. So it shows that how you listen to the feedback and how you sort of
Yeah.
evolve this workshop over time. So it's all like driven on real world experiences of delivering hundreds of these workshops.
Yeah, and then and some of those were like the customer is telling us, "Hey, we have your own product. Why are you called third party?" And I was like, "Good point." And we just go
Yeah.
on and add it. So yeah, that's a great point, and we do a lot of things like that, especially in the boxes themselves. So sometimes we end up expanding. On the early versions of the workshop, we have, for example, enable just in time uh, activation of privilege roles. And then we have 50 plus roles in Entra or more. And then we learn from customers, hey, what we typically do is we first go after the most privileged ones like global administrators and privileged role administrators and so on. But it's not realistic for us to go after everybody. We have hundreds of people with privileged roles, so it takes us some time.
Right.
Just back to what Clay was saying of the implementation effort, right? So one thing that we just did is break it down between rollout, privilege access for privilege role or top tier or tier
Yeah.
zero roles as we call it, and then the rest of the roles as a separate phased approach. So and this is part also how we came up with this first then next framework where
Yeah, that's an interesting
yeah.
one, right? So the spreadsheet is broken up into like 3 columns in every pillar.
Yep.
That says first, then, and next. Can you give an example?
Well, so this one is pretty interesting. Like the first and next was something that we at the time we were using internally to plan our own projects internally at Microsoft for features and so on. And it came very close after we had a few of these iterations, customers doing stuff in reverse order, right? So they go on, for example, we talk to them and then they tell us, oh, we have like 56 conditional access policies, and all of them are like hodgepodge, not cohesiveness. So we had an actual, and this is an example of a non like a more like a design kind of task
Right.
versus go and push buttons or do some or roll out a feature, right? So one of the things that we put in the first is, hey, you have to create a posture first and foremost, like a set of guidelines for your environment regarding conditional access. And this is just one example, right? So for example, a lot of customers have the MFA for everything or MFA or trusted device. So some customers come with that decision organically. Some others are thoughtful. So we're saying, hey, the best practice is like, first of all, make like do that. Also, part of the zero trust is starting to do things differently, right? So a great example is not doubling down on premises solutions, because on-premises solutions are not built for zero trust, and they are lacking a lot of these smaller controls and closed loop signals and all that. So some of these we're saying, hey, part of your strategy is that you should stop making or building applications that only depend on Active Directory, for example. So net new applications, you need to start this like building with O2, OpenID Connect, and so on.
Right.
And some of those that we put in the first, and then is basically the typical pattern of define policies and roll out at scale, and then continuous improvement in like in the next, right? So that gives us, and that has landed pretty well with customers, and some of them I think Clay can attest. We have some stories to tell, right, where the customers like did step backwards or not at all, right? In the like they do the first in one work stream and not get all the then in the others. And
Right.
we
Right.
see, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But one of the findings that was very eye-opening for me is customers not making those decisions. They just organically keep status quo and then magically expect that they reach zero trust, right? So that helps them to also build ammo. That's another thing that has been very cool for us to see, or learning, at least for me, is that what we put in the workshop has a lot of weight in customers to go and make a case for their leadership. So when you say, hey,
Right.
this is the official guidance from Microsoft, we really need to stop doing this, and then that helps them to kind of get that buy-in with customers, which
So yeah.
it's a concrete artifact that they can go on and use internally.
For
Clay, have
sure.
you seen an example of a customer you've done one workshop with them and then they use that to sort of get their house in order and you've seen the sort of the improvements? Yeah.
So, I'll say one of the big examples that has come up a couple times now, which, to be completely honest, when I first started doing these workshops, I would not have thought this was an issue. But something that's come up multiple times now in the workshop is we'll start talking about compliance policy and, go, yeah, your compliance policy looks awesome. And then we get to the box for conditional access policy, and I say, okay, your compliance policy looks great. Do you have a conditional access policy that's set to block not compliant devices? And I've now had multiple customers that have said, no, we don't do that part.
Right.
And that's something that to me has been eye-opening, but it's really something that to me is honestly the entire basis of zero trust. And when we look at, the pillars of zero trust and all of the principles of zero trust, they really to me all come down to like conditional access. And that's to me kind of the central cog for all of zero trust to me starts with conditional access. And so I think that's been one of the things that I've seen as a very positive outcome from these workshops is the customers who say, well, we haven't done the conditional access piece. And I really stress, okay, we've done the workshop. The next thing you need to do is go, start planning conditional access
Connect the
policies to
dots.
go
Yeah.
turn that on. To go block not compliant devices. And when I really, when I ask them why they haven't done it, a lot of times it was too much end user impact. And that's when I say, okay, let me just tell you how I recommend to handle that. And that's usually to get your legal or your compliance team, at your company to have them, instead of IT, be the one say, hey, look, this is why we need this. We need to protect ourselves from reputational harm, financial harm, et cetera, in the event of attacks. So we're going to be implementing conditional access. We're going to be blocking access to resources unless your device is fully enrolled in MDM, or if you have MAM to access your corporate applications. And make that message come from legal or compliance, not from IT. And that's something that I've seen now multiple customers I've done the workshop with have now implemented that in practice already in their environment. And to me, that's like I can sleep better at night knowing that they have that conditional access policy in place now.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's like buying very expensive locks and putting them all in, but just not locking it before and leaving the
Yeah,
house, right?
yeah,
Yep,
or yeah, leave the back door open.
Yeah,
yep,
Yeah,
that's true.
that's a great example, and this is one of the areas that we are very excited to see as we add more products or more pillars, is that there's more cross-product integrations that customers definitely should take a look into and include as part of their rollout. So we are now basically emphasizing that across the board. One thing that is also very interesting that I have seen also as we do it. So sometimes we tag team and both Clay and I do it. And sometimes the customers start with devices and then they do identity or vice versa. But one of the things that I have seen that I find very interesting is that they put compliant device, for example, the policy of devices, but then something super basic in the compliance, for example, like OS version is like, oops, we haven't updated
ten,
that
ten year,
yet.
10 years ago,
Yeah,
10 years ago version. Yes,
exactly right. So those things like the um the workshop kind of surfaces that. And one thing that we have seen is that is has been and at least that's for my experience is that is consistently positive, right? We don't see necessarily like customer see this as a criticism or anything. Is that actually is it just go deep and help them to surface those things, and we have seen very very closely that they get better over time, which is great.
And I think one of the things I've seen is that zero trust is not just product based, it's working together, right? And
Oh yeah.
the good example is the compliance policy and then not having a conditional access policy, because in most orgs, they're like different teams. The Intune team that's deploying doesn't have access to update conditional access policy. So they do their bit and then leave it to the identity team. And there is no sort of a joint ownership. And I've seen this in the workshops I've run. It's the first time a lot of these teams are sitting together in one room
Absolutely.
and you're asking those questions. And a lot of the time it's them talking between themselves, right? Like you're enabling these conversations to happen during the workshop.
for sure.
Yeah, that's true. One area that we typically also see is the SecOps with the SIEM system. That like, are we ingesting all the logs? I think so. And then they go and see, and there's some few signals. And this is a very important point that I'm very excited to get the SecOps part now, because a huge component of a zero trust strategy is to have that orchestration layer and monitoring layer based on the signals of the different products to basically react to changes in the environment and like connecting the dots across multiple signals, which is one of the like horizontals of zero trust that we're seeing a lot of, same as Clay was saying, like the policies, the compliance, the policies kind of evolve all the time. We enhance the logs all the time, and that changes a little bit how the playbooks look like, what things to monitor, and all those other recommendations. So that's another area that customers have to kind of stay on top of is the logging and the recommended playbooks and things like
For
that.
sure. One call out I do want to make really quick, Meryl. I know that both you and Ramiro both report to Tarek, so you can't talk good about him because he's your manager. But I do just want to give him some kudos here and just say that, Tarek's leadership, he leads the B team for the Zero Trust Workshop. And, his leadership and his ability to bring in all these other teams,
Yeah.
he had the vision that we should start small but then expand after we really get the process down was something that
Yeah.
is something that I don't necessarily know if that's the way I would have done it, because I wouldn't have I would have been, hey, let's just start with everyone. But he definitely made the right decision there to let's start small. Let's really nail down, identity and devices first, and then let's start pulling in other resources to help build out these other pillars. And I think that that's something that we're starting to see now come to fruition with all these new pillars being added. And I just want to give kudos to Tarek there for his leadership and his foresight to basically say let's start small but then expand quickly after we get the process down. And so he's been really good at that and really driving for new pillars to be added and also keeping us on schedule for getting new features deployed as well for the workshop.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it's a wide, like, this is sort of spanning across all the different products across Microsoft, right? And the various SMEs. And it's not easy to get people out to do this because they have their day job, they're doing all the
Their
stuff that they're
full-time
doing
jobs.
there, their
Yeah.
full-time job, helping customers out. And this is sort of distilling all of that knowledge. It's because it does take time and effort, right? It's not like just sitting down and putting that in. You do a lot for each, like there's this box that you have for each step in the roadmap, but then you also link it to guidance that you write for every single one. There's detailed steps. So someone coming in new, if you're like you're an SME at the customer, right? Say you're working as an admin, you want to figure this out on your own. You made it really easy for them to go in and learn what each one means. It's not just like one sentence there,
Yeah.
like the detailed steps of what they need to do, and then you link back
And
into the
also, yeah,
Microsoft Docs.
explaining why is it relevant in zero
Right.
trust and how does it help contain the risk? Because sometimes that's also is not obvious that like we do this for a living, day in day out, but for customers, something as mundane as why do I need to stop? Well, not mundane, but why do I need to stop doing AD join, right? Like it's there and I can push policies. What's the big deal? Then we explain, hey, here this helps with this, zero trust principle, right? And this is why it's important for you. And then some others that are like that are not as obvious, like conditional access is literally the policy enforcement point. But in some others, and actually it's a good call out. Like if folks want to learn how to like learn about our products and how to go on actually deploy it, then take a look at the workshop. Even if you don't want to run it for a customer, go read box by box. We're literally spelling out the order to go and do it. And if customers were to follow all the boxes, I think it's literally like deploying the entire product. um,
It is.
so is like it's a great way to learn actually how product works and the practical considerations that go with it.
100% Ramiro. And on that point, I also often get asked, is this workshop for new customers that have never, set up your product before? Is it for customers who have been doing this for years and are they you just need to go in and I'm like, it doesn't matter. This could be for a customer that has been fully deployed with Intune for 10 years. For us to go through and every single time we end up finding at least some things that they either didn't know about or hadn't said or hadn't, you know, looked at in a while and need to go update their policy for. But even for brand new customers that have never set anything up, that are literally starting a POC, it is an amazing way to basically have that onboarding experience. And we've actually started for some of our uh, Intune engagements for that first engagement with our customer acceleration team. We've actually started using this as an onboarding exercise where it honestly just allows us to go talk through every single thing in their console and say, hey, let's go set this up together, or hey, you need to go set this up on your own, but I'm going to walk you through some best practices. It's a really great tool for that, for partners, for us, and or for even you at your company just wanting to start out for the very first time installing these products and
Yeah,
getting them
or
deployed in your
even like
environment.
we have seen customers who have gone through, let's say, divestiture, right? They're spinning up a new environment. This is a great baseline to start strong and start solid on getting all that deployed as fast as, as much as you can in any environment. And then obviously after you like the environment matures and you have more applications and more objects and more policies, etc., then you have to kind of keep coming back. And then that's another thing that we want to do as a team is to keep this fresh, right? So ideally, every 6 months or so, we want to revisit the content and then refresh it based on the like the new announcements, the new features that come, or in some cases deprecations and things like that. Just make sure that that's all up to date. So
when is AI coming to the spreadsheet, right? To the workshops.
yeah, we get that a lot. It's something we're working on. Is that's the kind of the next frontier of customer interest and adoption, and we're working on it.
We just had some resources join our V team this week to focus on building this out for AI and securing AI. So definitely looking forward to that because I get the ask all the time as well.
Yeah, because everyone is going head on to deploying copilots and AI and MCPs. And how does Zero Trust apply to all of those? And what are the things you need to watch out for is a big thing, right? Like there was this whole BYOD wave, and that's where Intune came in, and everyone went head first into deploying iPhones, and then we applied the Zero Trust principles. We are still trying to apply and secure them. It's the same thing that's happening now in AI as well.
Yeah,
right?
so it's interesting because definitely one area, but then at the same time we go back and go talk to customers and sometimes they like what we have found is they almost done but not quite done with the basics. Things that BYOD, great point. Like not like almost there with all the policies, but not there. There's same thing with like MFA. We are almost done. We did a big push 5 years ago, but we're still burning the long tail of exceptions and things like that. So it's always interesting to see that those pockets of like initiatives that get 80% done. Then this helps, but yeah, for sure, that's the AI is definitely the next frontier that we need to keep working with customers to help to dial. Yep.
Perfect. We almost at the top of the hour. Clay, your last thoughts on Zero Trust. What do you want to give as your sort of parting advice to the folks listening?
I guess for those who are listening, I would just like to say that, for me, the hardest part for deploying Zero Trust is getting started. Just start. Just start. You don't even have to have a plan yet. Just start and start, looking at creating a plan. And as you start to work on your deployment, make sure that you're logging it, but, just make sure that you keep going. If you get bogged down, reach out to one of us. It's something that I have seen now after doing this a lot of times is sometimes customers just get bogged down and they just say, hey, I'm going to go back and revisit that. And then they never do, or other stuff comes up. You have to keep plugging at it. And if you do get stopped, make yourself restart. And, that's really my biggest piece of advice that I would pass on is get started and keep going. You'll get there. You have to really stick to it.
Nice. Ramiro, your final thoughts?
I think Clay pretty much sum it up. This is what I would say is also this is not a once and done thing. You have to keep at it. As Clay was saying, make a rhythm of always reviewing and refreshing. Now we're in this, in the cloud velocity in which we release capabilities to help you secure your environment are coming very, very fast, and it's important that customers kind of absorb those changes and plan what does it mean for them, and just as Clay was saying, keep going, keep pushing, but then keep refining. And now with AI, this is another thing that we're very excited about. Is AI is a huge opportunity for us to also like scale like the application of doing this for all kinds of customers. So something that we're also looking into as next steps. But yeah, that's all I would say.
Awesome. Yes, yeah. So I'm going to be publishing the podcast today of the conditional access optimization agent, which is sort of doing some of those things, right?
Exactly right.
You don't have the time, what Clay spoke about, you don't have the time to go and tweak all the policies. And now for conditional access, you have an agent running 24/7, and it's looking at things where things are going wrong and sort of helping that. So those foundations and things are starting to
So take
appear.
shape, absolutely, and this is definitely
That's exciting.
that's definitely very exciting for us to see where that will lead us. So very exciting stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, so for like the last analogy, like the thing that I would leave people with is like just like a master chef, it doesn't throw all the ingredients into a pot, right? In a Michelin to create a Michelin star dish, they have like a very specific, precise recipe and different people doing different things. And in the same way, the Zero Trust Workshop is that, right? It's providing a very proven recipe of customers transforming like a complex, often insecure IT environment into a very robust and resilient security posture using the Zero Trust Workshop as a guide. So that's it's amazing. You created this and you've given it and you keeping it fresh because that's one of the other big parts of it. So thank you so much for all that you've done and the guidance you provide in taking out all of this, the things that you have in your head and sharing all of that with us.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
having us.
Thank you, Meryl, and thank you, Ramiro. I mean, you guys do all the work. I just sit here and look good. But I really appreciate everything that you do.
You make it look good. You evangelize this, I think, more than anyone else. You've done so many presentations to MVPs and flying out at all odd hours. I know you're running one next week as well, right? Workshop.
Yeah, I'm going to the East Coast to have an in-person workshop with a customer for a few days. I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Nice. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Meryl, for this
on.
space, and very cool to get to know your audience.
Awesome. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.